Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my very first Get Famous video where I have to, of course, do a speed build with the new Get Famous stuff. So Get Famous comes with so much stuff and such a diverse package of stuff. We've got like sci-fi stuff, western stuff, post-apocalyptic stuff, fancy mansion mermaid stuff, a very like retro kind of bowling 90s pack stuff. It's just all over the place. It's a big group of stuff. And so it's been really hard for me to come up with things that I want to do for this pack, believe it or not, just because I feel like so many of the pieces are difficult to use in a day-to-day setting or just for like your casual house build. And you guys all know that I like to do things that are a little bit outside of the box anyway. I'm not much of a standard house builder, and when I do them, I don't know, you guys don't really like to see them. You like to see me do these weird kind of builds. So originally, here's what happened. I went into this with the idea to attempt to do the Death Star. So I've been on a Star Wars kick recently, and I knew we were getting new sci-fi stuff with this pack that I'm super pumped about because I definitely have more Star Wars builds in the works. Don't worry about that. The Death Star just was not working for me. Not to say that I might not be able to figure out how I want to do it in the future, but the way that I initially planned to do it and went in with the mindset to do it was not working out. So I've had this kind of problem lately. I don't want to call it a block, but I've just been going into builds and not been really satisfied with the way that they're coming out. So I end up scrapping the whole thing, and that's really, really bad for me. I like to have a video done every day. Like every day that I go in with the intent to make a video, I like to come out with a video. So if I don't come out with one, I will try and start something new, despite the fact that I may have been working on the previous one for hours. So I opened up Get Famous. I looked at all of the sci-fi stuff. I attempted to make the Death Star. It really was not coming together. And I was like, I still want to do something sci-fi. I still want to do something in the Star Wars realm. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Instead of Star Wars, how about Star Trek? So I'm a big Star Trek fan as well. I watched Star Trek growing up. I love the new movies. I know a lot of people have really mixed opinions on them, but I am a huge fan. I love Chris Pine. He is one of my top 3 favorite actors. Very disappointed to hear that he will not be in the new movie. I'm not so interested in the next Star Trek movie, knowing that he's not going to be a part of it, but besides the case, I was like, let's make a Starship Enterprise. Let's do the frickin' Enterprise. So here we are. And you guys kind of joined me a little bit into the process of making it already. I did not start from scratch. I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to make this either. So I started to work on it. And then when it got to a good shape where I was like, I think I can make this work, that's when I started recording, which is why we did kind of start with a kind of a base already set to go. I do want to say right off the bat that this video is very, very much inspired by the one that Hatsy did where she made the Millennium Falcon. I thought that video was brilliant. It's wonderfully done. If you haven't seen it and you're a Star Wars fan, I will absolutely link it in the description box below. It's a wonderful video and it was just a great idea. She made the Millennium Falcon and it looks amazing. And as I was doing this, I found myself using a lot of the tricks that she did in her video to make the Enterprise possible. So I did want to give her a shout out because it's absolutely inspired by her video. However, this one required a lot of different things than the Millennium Falcon would have required. So the Millennium Falcon is kind of it's a cargo ship. So it's cluttered. There's a lot of stuff hanging off of it. There's a lot of like accessories and piping and tubing and wires and stuff sticking off of it. The Enterprise is clean and mean. So it does not have as many bolts and nuts on it. It's just really made to look very sleek and elegant. So there are not too many things that needed to go on the top, believe it or not. I did kind of overwork it. I did put a lot more into it than maybe even some of the photos were showing, but I kind of want to explain why. So if you're not a huge Star Trek fan, or I would say like you kind of have to know a little something about Star Trek to understand, but basically, I made a huge mistake when I was doing this video in the beginning. So I started to write the name of the ship or the number, the code of the ship on the top of it. All of the ships have this, but they're all different. So I was looking at a model for reference, as I typically do, and I was looking at the NCC 701-A. So the -A is not exactly the ship that I meant to build. I don't know too much about it, but I texted my brother, and he is like a big Star Trek fan, and I asked him to explain the differences to me between the 1701 and the 1701-A, and basically he told me that in the new movies, the ones that are out now, they're using the 1701. So that's the one I meant to build. And I could have gone back. There was a point of return where I could have decided to just take away the -A. Some might even be saying that at this point in the video. Why didn't you just delete the -A and make the ship that you wanted to make? Well, it's a lot easier said than done, because if you'll notice, I am using a clutter item, kind of like this little file thing, to draw the letters on top of the machine, on top of the Enterprise, sorry. And it looked really, really good when it was done. The spacing was perfect. It was all lining up exactly where it was supposed to. It had a nice curve. It just looked very clean. And I didn't want to move it. So there was a point where I took away the -A, and I was kind of sitting there looking at it, and I was like, if I remove this -A, I am going to have to move every single one of these boxes over to move all of the letters. And I would have. And it's not even like a laziness thing. It's just that they came out so perfect and they looked exactly like the model I was using. I didn't want to move it. So unfortunately, I did make the 1701-A. But there are not too many differences. I would say the only differences really majorly is size. When I was going for like the new one from the new movies, it's a lot smaller, this ship is. The other one, way, way bigger. The other one's a little bit sleeker. It doesn't have as many lights and colors on it. So once I realized that I was accidentally building the -A, I decided from that point forward that I was going to use only -A models as reference. So this is 100% the NCC 1701-A, and I am so sorry to all of my Star Trek fans who are like, why didn't you just build the regular one? But that's what it is. Maybe at some point I could build the regular one. And for those of you who just love the movies and don't really care for super accuracy, you don't really care anyway. So we're going to move forward. We're going to move past this. And I think that it came out really, really nice. So despite the fact that I accidentally made the wrong ship, it still looks really good. And I'm really, really proud of this, especially because one of the reasons I wanted to do this, we got all of these really cool clutter items that they're not even clutter items. They're kind of, I think you can find them under decorations, and they are made for the set pieces for Get Famous. So you can make your own sets for the acting career in Get Famous now. And they have a bunch of sci-fi stuff, and it looks just like the interior of a spaceship. It reminded me of the Death Star, which is originally why I went in with the intention to build that. So despite that not working out, I wanted to use the new items we got from Get Famous on the interior of this to really make it look exactly like what it would look like inside the Enterprise. So it does definitely come and go depending on like which photos you're using for the inside of the Enterprise. If you're going to use something from the new stuff, if you're going to use something from the old stuff, it really changes. But I just kind of gave it one big mash together. It's kind of like I took the old stuff and the new stuff and smushed it all together and tried to make something kind of in between. And I really like it. You're definitely going to like it if you're a Star Trek fan. I hope, fingers crossed. But yeah, that was why I wanted to do this whole build. I just wanted to decorate the interior. And there was a point where I thought that it wasn't going to be possible, and I almost backed out of this build and just left it as a shell. I'll talk about that more when we go on the inside, because I think it'll be a little bit easier for you to see. But yeah. So a lot of this build was just me trying to mirror everything. I was using lots and lots of model reference photos, so I was trying to literally put down pieces where I could see every single major nut and bolt. But like I said, the Enterprise is supposed to be very sleek looking, and it's a starship for the Federation. So they spend a lot of time obviously designing these ships and always trying to make them the best that they could possibly be for space and for that. And I think what makes the Enterprise unique, if I am like correct in saying this, the Enterprise can almost spend more time in space than some of the other ships. It's designed to be in space for a really long time, so it can't have a lot of stuff on it. That would be like my thinking behind it, because you wouldn't want a ton of weight, you wouldn't want a ton of extra technology and mechanics and things that could get broken and things that can go wrong, because if you're deep in space, you may not be able to fix those kinds of things. So it has to be very straightforward, as minimal technology as possible, so it just doesn't look as cluttered as maybe some of the other ships from Star Trek would. I didn't want to leave it super plain looking, and something that I do know about the Enterprise, especially because this is kind of like off topic but also not, I collect Hallmark ornaments, and every year they do a version of the Enterprise. I've never bought one for myself, but I've purchased the Enterprise for my brother before, and they are always ones that light up because they're beautiful at night. Some of the screenshots that I'm going to be sharing on Twitter are actually the Enterprise lit up at night. So it was really important to me that I turned the lights off and made it nighttime and decorated it with a lot of lights, like enough that it would be really prominently lighting up during the nighttime. And your Sims will actually be able to get inside of the Enterprise. It's going to require you to teleport, obviously. The way you can do that, if you're not familiar, is testing cheats enabled and then shift click on the ground or wherever you want your sim to teleport, and you will get the option of teleport sim, and then they can go upstairs. You could add stairs from the bottom to the first floor. I just didn't do that, obviously, because I wanted to give the illusion that it was floating. And there are 2 levels that are accessible. I do add stairs. You can also access these little like long pillars that come off of the back of it. They're a little crammed. I don't know how well your Sims would be able to move around in there, and they would definitely have to teleport from room to room, because I did make those kind of like the boarding quarters. So there's a lot of the new space pods that we got with this pack in there for people to sleep and stuff. I probably could have took some blueprints and like went really hard on this and designed the entire thing to be exactly like the Enterprise, but the only problem with that is there wasn't really enough room for everything. This is on a pretty large lot. I think it's one of the largest lots in the New World, and that's where I'm building. I'm on like this very expensive like penthouse almost kind of lot that overlooks the city, because I just wanted to get some new scenery. I've been dying. And you know what I found about this lot? This lot is really weird for lighting. I don't know if you guys have noticed throughout this video, but I've been changing the lighting over and over again. It was driving me crazy the way that the shadows were coming in from the back. It's almost like the sun was behind the Enterprise, which wasn't awesome for building purposes and not good for screenshots either. I'm kind of really wondering why they decided to do that, but besides the point, we're in the New World, and yeah, you could teleport up to the upper parts of it. There's not a ton of room, but it would work. You could do it. But more importantly is the like inside of it, the main structure and the bottom structure. But like I said, we'll talk about it more when we go in there. I did cut a lot of the video out just because a lot of this was just me deciding what I wanted each side to look like and then mirroring it on the other side of the Enterprise. The Enterprise is symmetrical, obviously, so everything that is on one side is also on the other. And so I just basically had to design one side and then go back and forth and mirror it on the other. But I was really kind of frustrated with that. I was trying to count tiles. That was one of the many reasons why I decided to use this tile kind of wallpaper, and it was just not working for a while, and I wasn't really sure why. And then I realized that I made it crooked, so it was not exactly even on each side. And some of you probably have already noticed this as I've been building. I do fix it, so it is symmetrical now for the most part. It's just difficult sometimes when you're building on like these multiple level. Well, I guess what threw me off right off the bat was deleting the first layer. And then you have to build this bottom layer and then this bigger plate on top of it that completely covers the bottom layer. You can't see the bottom layer. So that was kind of throwing me off, and I couldn't really tell where everything was exactly. But once I figured out it was crooked, I did fix it. And by the way, this is available for download on the gallery under my origin ID, theallegedsimmer, all one word. You do have to have Get Famous, obviously, to use it. But even if you downloaded it without Get Famous, I used a lot of stuff that was from the science career from Get to Work, so maybe you could possibly download this without Get Famous. The only things I know you would not get for sure are the interior of the Enterprise, like a lot of the stuff that I did on the inside, and those two kind of L-shaped pillars that are holding up the back part of the Enterprise. Those are from Get Famous as well, and they worked so perfectly for this build. That was one of the things that I was so excited that we got. Just these like random science-y interior spaceship pieces, and they are going to be coming so in handy for me in future builds. I have a lot of ideas. I have other ships that I want to do, some really recognizable ones, maybe not in the Star Trek or Star Wars universe, but possibly in other universes, very large ones that start with M, and I'm very excited to attempt. I've already attempted one, but I'm not going to share it yet. I'm going to make you guys wait on that. If you're a fan of Star Wars, which I find that some people, like, you're either a fan of both or you're very, very dramatic about one or the other. You're a diehard Star Trek fan, diehard Star Wars fan, or you just kind of like both. I'm in the middle. I do have a preference for Star Wars, but Star Trek always gets me excited. It is very nostalgic for me, and I think like ways that Star Wars was not. I wasn't one of those kids that was that grew up on Star Wars. I'm not that old, but I did get shown all of the Star Wars movies by my older brother, but we like sat down and watched them all together. So that was kind of how I experienced it versus Star Trek, where I experienced it growing up. I watched the show. It was always on TV. If you didn't have cable, that was a show that was like always on a Saturday. They always showed Star Trek. So you kind of learn to love it whether or not you actually do. And I've heard that there's actually a new TV show, like a Star Trek TV show. Does anybody watch that? If you're a fan of Star Trek, obviously you're probably watching this video if you're somewhat of a fan. Does anybody watch that show? And what are your opinions on it? I haven't heard anything about it. And then I texted my brother and I was like, they should really do a modern Star Trek TV show. Like, we have the movies. Why don't we have a TV show? And he was like, there is one. And he was showing me some stuff from it. I don't know how I feel about it just based off of the trailers, but you have to buy CBC, you have to buy like this special network exclusive package that's $5 a month, and I'm like, wow, I don't know if I want to pay $5 a month for this one Star Trek show unless it's really good. So if you've seen the show, let me know. Comment down below your opinions on it. Would I like it if I'm a fan of the new Star Trek movies? Because I am. So would I like it? I feel like you probably would if you're like interested, but I don't know. Let me know. Let me know, guys. And yeah, so we are actually going to move on to the interior here. And this is when I realized that these spaceship pieces are too big for the interior of the Enterprise. So initially I was like, I'll just raise the walls up. So I make them as tall as they'll possibly go, but it didn't look good. The Enterprise is supposed to be thin and sleek, and the more I like bulked it up and made it kind of chunky, it really, really didn't look good. And then unfortunately, when I sized down these pieces once, they looked as though they were going to fit on the inside, and they were just barely scraping the ceiling. So you could see them, and it was kind of doing this weird flashing effect when you would look at the Enterprise from the outside. So I did have to size them down to the smallest they could possibly go. And I was really upset by that at first. I just wanted them to take up the whole wall space, I guess. But then I kind of realized that this whole Enterprise and this lot is a lot bigger than I think it is. So when I was going in, and you'll see me kind of a lot zooming into it and kind of trying to look at it from a Sims perspective, it's still massive. And the walls are obviously still taller than the Sims. So even when these pieces are sized down to their absolute smallest that they can go, they're still big for the Sims. So I decided that that was just going to have to be good enough. Again, I did cut a lot of the design on the inside just because it was repetitive, but I'll talk a little bit about some of the choices I decided to make based off of just watching Star Trek over the years and the movies, obviously. So we got these kind of pieces that look like computers, or they look kind of like where people would be running data, or you could go up and like get data. You could get information out of them. And a lot of times in the Star Trek universe, they show people sitting in front of machines and running numbers and just making sure that certain parts of the ship are working correctly, especially on the bridge or the deck where the captain is. There are a lot of people that are there that are immediately like there for purposes that the captain might need. So I wanted to put a ton of those for all of the different red shirt and blue shirt people to be looking. Actually, I don't think you would see too many blue shirts in like this area, because isn't blue shirt medical? I don't know. See, I call myself a Star Trek fan, but then I don't know these things. I know, fake fan. But yeah, so I put all these little computer pieces, and then we had so many items from not Get Famous, Get to Work. All these gets, they're getting to me. We had so many of these items, and I was like, we need to use them because they all look like just different machines and computers and clutter items, and you don't really know, but you also don't really need to know what they do. It's not like, there are a few people, I'll put it this way, there are a few people that can look at the inside of the Enterprise and look at every single machine that they have running and say, this is what this does, this is what this does, this is what this does. It's just, there's not too many people that know that. So I figured a lot of the random science clutter items would be perfect. And then we also got this new, it's called a drone, and I think it's a video game, but they look like space helmets. I was so excited. All the reviews I've seen of people like going over the build and buy items, I did not see one person cover that item. So I was so excited to see that. And I did it in obviously the 3 colors, red, green, oh my God, red, yellow, and blue for the 3 different colored Star Trek shirts, to put helmets on before they go out onto different planets, because they're exploring planets on the Enterprise. That's one of their like big things. They go to different planets, and I'm pretty sure they're trying to integrate different species into the United Space Federation. Is that correct? Probably not. I'm so sorry, Star Trek fans. But yes, so they're traveling, they go to lots of planets, they leave the ship a lot. Sometimes they need helmets, right? So I was like, this is perfect. And then I was using these, they look like elevators or transport kind of devices, but I believe that they are some kind of like machine that drives stuff off. I don't know. It's for the science career, but they look like elevators. So that's what we're going to use them for. And then of course, something that's always been very, very iconic for the Enterprise is the pad that they go on where they transport down and up into the ship. And the famous like beam me up Scotty line is from that area. Don't know what the thing is called. Sorry again. Oh my God, I probably should have done some research before I did this video and embarrassed myself. But yeah, so I had to include that. It's on the lower floor. Not that it obviously works. It's something else. I sized up very, very large to look kind of like a transport device system that could get them down to the different planets. But regardless, it's there. And it looks really cool. And then lastly, I just wanted to put some stuff in these back 2 little slots. Like I said, you're going to have to beam up to them. You're going to have to teleport to them. And I decided to just make them boarding quarters, just places where people can rest. So we're using the brand new space pod, which is really cool. It floats when your Sims get into them. And then I put one of those little elevator looking things in every single room just so that it kind of makes sense that they would be able to transport into there. Yeah, and then I just did it on both sides. There's a special one on the right hand one for the captain that is colored very differently than all the other ones, kind of like the captain's quarters, which I know is somewhere in the ship, but like I said, I didn't have a lot of room, so I couldn't put it. Would have liked to. Maybe in the future I can do this like triple the size and do something really, really super accurately. But that is actually it. That is the Starship Enterprise NCC 1701-A. Let me know what you guys think of these. Let me know if you'd like to see more starships, more spaceships, more Star Trek, more Star Wars. Let me know what you would like to see. Let me know what you think of this build. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.